Chapter 267. Family Discussion 4. Mother? A mermaid said to the Crusader. The Crusader had cast her gaze in a certain direction. Flapping their tails and splashing water onto the rock with their fins, the mermaids also looked in the same direction. Mother, why are you so interested in the place where the elves are? No. I was just so flabbergasted that I was speechless. After talking between parent and children for a while, that person really couldn't help herself. A bitter smile hung from the Crusader's lips. This seemed to stimulate the anxiety of the mermaid race. We know a lot about Mother, but we don't know that person. Is she a good person? She's a sad person. The Crusader simply defined the count like that. And a pure person. Then the Crusader got lost in thought. It seemed like she was lost in thought for a moment. It wasn't for long. The Crusader picked up the helmet she had placed on the rock. Clank. Without a word, she put the helmet back on her head. The inside of the helmet filtered out the small chatter that came in from the world. The deceiving colors in the world narrowed. This filtered and narrowed field of view was small enough that she only recalled the things she had to do. Mermaids. Standing, the Crusader looked around. In the river where the rock sat, mermaids swam or stayed still, without exception. Tens of thousands of mermaids looked up at the Crusader. Thank you for comforting the simple-minded me, and praising my mistakes as pretty. I will keep the things you told me tonight, and the scene of your cross the dark water, in my heart for the rest of my life. Are you leaving, Mother? Although I will come visit you from time to time. The Crusader nodded. I also have a lot of work to do. It can't be helped. There was a pause. The river water and seawater where the mermaids floated swelled irregularly at times. The mermaids had a habit of holding each other tightly and whispering in each other's ears. This time too, they gently grasped the shoulders of their conspecifics, and the whisper spread from 1 to 1, and again from 1 to 10. Mother. After the whispers ended, a mermaid spoke on behalf of the entire race. Will you not take us with you? We were told about a place called the Tower. And we were told that it was a place we would soon see. If that place is Mother's homeland, wouldn't it be fine for us to follow Mother there? We love the water. But we love the land that we can't swim on a bit more. And if it is the land our Mother lives, we'd love it even more. Please take us with you. The Crusader had nothing to say. She adjusted the hilt of her sword without a word. In the Tower, there are many ignoble people. I don't want you to be hurt by those people. What ignoble people? They will call you fishes simply because you have tails. They won't do it as a funny joke either, they will call you fish simply to make you feel bad. There are many, many people who live like they don't care about anything other than ruining other people's moods. That's why. Mother. The mermaids looked at each other before looking back up at the Crusader. People like that are common in this place too. The Crusader closed her mouth. There are many among us too. Weak people. Sick people. There are many people in the world who torment people simply because they are irritated. There have always been people like that, and there will always be people like that. Not beyond them. Among us. The mermaids spoke in unison. So that can't be a reason why we shouldn't see Mother's world. The Crusader hesitated for a moment. Wait a minute. Someone grabbed the Crusader's shoulder. Although it was a gentle and considerate grip, it was covered with firm will. The Crusader knew only one person who could grab her shoulder like that. The Death King has descended. 7. You don't have to be scared, Senior. Death King. Turning her head, the crusader looked at me. What do you mean, scared? I didn't answer. I didn't say, for example, that she was scared that the day might come when the mermaids found out that the crusader herself was an ordinary person. I just cheerfully said, "How about this?" About what? Instead of inviting the mermaid children into our tower from the beginning, you can send them past the 11th floor, to study in the Egypt Empire. There are mermaids living there too. Ah! The crusader's eyes widened. I nodded. It's unlikely that she thought about that. After all, the crusader hadn't participated in the attack at that time. Something had happened. At that time, I had taken the hungry ghost as a soldier. However, the Egypt Empire hadn't known that fact yet. Therefore, they established a multi-race alliance to chase the witch, and among them were also such characters. In the eyes of this young one, the problem was simple after all. Whether this young man really is the emissary of the founding emperor, or if that woman was really the witch. Whether or not the emissary really defeated the witch and brought her under his reign. It'll all be solved as long as we can confirm this. This is the sole jewel that the Queen of Mermaids gave me. If you drip a drop of blood here, you can determine whether the owner of the blood has a good-natured soul or a evil-natured soul. If you have a good-natured soul, the jewel will emit white light, and if you have an evil-natured soul, a black light will emerge. As everyone knows, I coolly sprinkled my blood on the jewel. Ha. Oh dash, how can his soul be so? How many lives have you saved? Such a pure white, this is simply. This person he's light itself. Shining Gongja. That was the moment I was crowned. The mermaids living on the 15th floor are very friendly to me. They think that I really am an apostle of God. No, well, the god in that place is the goddess of protection, and this goddess of protection is Shiny, who is now my hip hugger, so that analysis isn't exactly wrong, but... Said hip hugger shook in her sheath. It felt like a protest demanding I take better care of her. Between meeting the tower master, raising children well, mediating between my colleagues, and joking around with Bei Hurayang, I still had a lot of things to do. Shiny. Please wait a little longer. Maybe someday you'll get the lead role in a spin-off gourmet travelogue, The Meal Diary of the Tower's First Floor by Goddess Shiny. In any case. The point is that there are mermaids friendly to me living in another world. It could be like some kind of tutorial. Wouldn't that be a suitable destination for the mermaids to study? The crusader looked me in the eyes. Can you let go of my legs? Naturally. Don't you think personal connections are meant to be used at times like this, instead of other times? Death King. No, Kim Gongja. The crusader's expression changed. Because the change of expression was so small, even I could only read whether she was in a good mood or in an unfriendly mood from her expression, but the expression the crusader was showing this time was easy to read. Show manners. No. There's no need to be thankful. I'm just doing what's natural. Kim Gongja. No, Light Gongja. You are really kind-hearted. Ahaha. I am pretty kind-hearted. Anyway kind-hearted and good-looking too. It is said that a person's life is reflected on their face. It seems to be true. No. I'm certainly brimming with life, but I don't think it's necessary to dash. Even your voice is beautiful. I think it would work even if you were to become a singer right now. Is this what a natural-born singer is? Sing Gongja. Sing Gongja? Senior. Excuse me? You're kind-hearted, good-looking, and good at singing, so it should be fine for you to avoid military service. I heard there's compulsory military service in Korea. Military gongja. No, it was changed to voluntary military service when I was young. And the story of celebrities skipping military service is really old already. Moreover, since I'm a top ranker, even if there was still a conscription system, there's a high chance that I'd be exempted from military service due to my promotion of national glory, or something like that. I'm sure that would be the case. National prestige gongja star. Gukjeayu gongja actually means a person of national merit, which refers to a person who sacrificed for or contributed to the country. National prestige gongja, no, anyway, senior. You're making fun of me, right? Just like when you made a fire play for the first time, right? I don't know what you're talking about. The crusader feigned ignorance. I sighed. Smiling slightly, the crusader turned towards me, grabbed my shoulder, and pulled. Naturally, my waist bent. With her arms around my neck, the crusader showed my face to the mermaids. This is the Death King. He is the god of the goblins, and a ranker in our tower. As you can see, he is my junior, and also my buddy. The mermaids chattered. Death King. God of the goblins. Mother's junior. Mother's buddy. National prestige gongja. Goddamn, my face felt like it was going to catch fire. So, Death King. The crusader loosened her grip around my neck. A soft smile hung from her lips. I would really like to thank you for your good suggestion. Let's plan it according to what the Death King said. Then, the crusader quickly put together a proposal. She would select a few foreign students to study at the Egyptian Empire's Mermaid Falls. The plan was to observe the problems and conflicts that might arise there, formulate solutions, and then increase the number of foreign students. Then, while gradually increasing the number of students, she would ultimately introduce the mermaids to Babylon, the city on the first floor of our tower. Hoo-hoo. The crusader chuckled. It seemed that the mermaid race had been fully convinced by the proposal, as they chose to follow the crusader without hesitation. Excitedly, they said things like, "What do mermaids from another world look like? They live in an enormous lake, not in the sea, and is that lake really that big?" Just like children going on a school trip. You really don't know how life goes. Although it's just a figure of speech, I put myself in the position of a parent to raise children. I made up with the Black Dragon Master and became friends again. Even my relationship with the other guild masters. The crusader looked at me with a smile. However, it seemed like her gaze was not directed at me, but somewhere else. Seriously. Things like that happened. The crusader's voice suddenly faded. It was as if she was reminiscing about the stories of the past. I kept my mouth shut this time too. Before reaching the 15th floor where the mermaid's lake was. When I had climbed to the 13th floor of the tower for the first time, we became divided because there was a traitor among us. We were divided. I had guessed who the traitor was. However, instead of trying to uncover the traitor, I buried it deeply by changing the stage itself in order to prevent it from happening. At that time, I had sometimes wondered whether not investigating the traitor's identity was the right thing to do or not, but the moment I saw the crusader's side profile, I was able to think without wavering. Right. That was a good thing to do. And it was enough. Bit by bit, the fog of dawn rose in the forest. Beneath the palm trees, the heretic questioner continued to talk about something with the snails. Although the heretic questioner's expression was serious, at times he would smile like he usually did. Meanwhile, on the other side, the count was stroking the elves' heads. Perhaps it was some kind of oath of loyalty. Or perhaps it was a parent showing affection to her children for the first time. Perhaps it was both. Nevertheless, the Count was smiling, and the elves looked happy. "Thanks," the Crusader said. And looked at me. "You're a good friend." Kim Gongja. Patricia. Silence fell. "That's my real name. Patricia. In the future, if there's no one else around, you can call me Patricia. If the civil militia were to hear, there might be a dispute over favoritism. I'm sure the children you raised will understand you too. Mi amigo." The Crusader walked up to the stream where the mermaids were splashing around in the water. Then, she took off her heavy armor, helmet, and gauntlet before diving in among the mermaids. Quest progress. Beginning the mermaid race's vote. Splash. Vote counting completed. Option 2 number of votes, 1.32%. Option 1 number of votes, 98.68%. Please note that option 1 received more than half of the votes. In the distance, the sound of the mermaids laughing could be heard. I could hear stories of their god walking with them, stories of them carrying their god on their backs, and even stories of their god dancing with them. Having their god swim with them was a happiness that only the mermaid race could experience. Stage clear. The 42nd floor stage has been cleared. I watched the sight of a god and their race, a parent and their children swimming together for a long time. Then, ugh! I heard the familiar voice of a familiar child behind me. "Daddy." It was a burqa. I nodded. Right. The heretic questioner, Count, and Crusader had all cleared the stages one after the other, and now it was my and the Black Dragon Master's turns. As we left the waiting room, the Black Dragon Master made a promise to me, saying, "Don't you dare peek, Kim Gongja. If you peek, I will poison you." She said she didn't want anyone to see her in parent mode talking openly to the vampires, or something like that. The fact that she mentioned the specific method of poisoning rather than just saying she would kill him, highlighted just how serious Anastasia was. How would she do it? It wasn't like I was a rookie who didn't even have an immunity skill. Phew. However, unlike Anastasia, I was not embarrassed at all. How close I was to the children. Instead, I hoped that everyone would, while watching me chat harmoniously with the children, and seeing how strong our children-parent bond was, feel envious. I would be grateful if they were jealous. Come, a burqa dash dot. Turning slowly and opening my hands, I planned to hug a burqa. The heretic questioner had shown off his mental growth by showing pity for his children. The Count had shown off her capitalist virtues by personally providing them with employment for her children. The Crusader had shown off her moral mind by prioritizing her children's hearts. I, Kim Gongja, was simply the sky. I was confident enough to not show any mental growth, capitalist values, or even my moral mind. If you knew yourself and your enemy, you could win every battle. In a way, the biggest enemy in someone's life was their own children, and in that regard, those goblin children were no match for me, who already had an insight into everything. Ugh. Even when your colleagues mocked you and questioned you for choosing goblins, Daddy still firmly chose our goblin race. Something like. I knew the legend of Daddy teaching us about characters and tattoos, but seeing it for myself in my head was so touching. Ugh. It cannot be said that Daddy hasn't given us everything. Or something like. Daddy's grace is like the sky, so there is no way for us to repay it. If it wasn't for Daddy, we wouldn't be the overlords of the continent, and we would be more disgusting than we are now. Daddy really is a true friend. Thud, thud. In my ears, I could hear hundreds of thousands of goblins, including a burqa, singing, "Daddy, Daddy," like a hymn. Of course, facing this praise, What are you talking about? It's because you all are so amazing. It's enough for this daddy to watch you all grow up. I love you, my children. Was ready to be humble. It was perfect. From now on, I was no longer the light. I was the light-filled sky. Not shining, but the sky. The glorious moment, in which Gongja was reborn as the true sky, was now unfolding. As I turned around, widening the business smile I'd learned from the Black Dragon Master. Anticipating my child's passionate embrace. Now, come give me a dash dot. Daddy. I got something passionate. You're wide open. A huge axe flying passionately towards my chest. Huh, the fuck? Tight. It was only thanks to my high stage that I was able to avoid the blow. Maybe it was because I received some kind of premonition from Behu Ryang, who had been looking at me with an overwhelmingly pitying expression, but had it not been for my profound step technique, I would not have been able to avoid it. You go. The axe-wielding Aburka frowned. Then he spat on the ground. Daddy's movements are like a squirrel running through the forest. I thought I'd executed my attack perfectly. What do you think you're doing, Aburka? Flustered, I looked over Aburka's shoulder. The children following Aburka, who now had skins as red as their hearts, stood in a crowd. Unless my eyeballs were seriously damaged, they all also held weapons in their hands. They could only be described as very inappropriate types of equipment to use when greeting your parents. Where is the touching reunion? Didn't you all see the video of me taking care of you for thousands of years? We saw it. If you saw it, then why are you swinging your axe? I don't know what you're talking about. Aburka bared his fangs. We've known for a long time that Daddy cares for us, so we weren't particularly impressed while watching that video. What? Think about it. You go. We go to theaters to watch Fireplace whenever we're bored. Every day, the topics that appear in Fireplace are all Daddy's love, hardship, and friend story. Fireplace where Daddy is the main character are so overplayed now that most goblins can probably recite them with their eyes closed. Daddy, you seem to have forgotten that people have a threshold. I couldn't believe it. Was this, that? A phenomenon where if you show too much love on a daily basis, your love would be taken for granted, and filial piety would no longer be felt? No way. Yes, way. Whoosh. Aburka swung his axe yet again. This time, he even carefully wrapped it in aura. It seemed that the stage of his aura had grown after absorbing the energy dragon, causing his attacking power to shoot to the top. Hike. Spare Daddy.
Oh.
I've been waiting so long for this day to come. Aburka's biceps throbbed. I was beaten up in an unseemly manner the first time I met Daddy. Even after becoming a constellation, I was still beaten up by Daddy. But, today, after eating that turtle's head, I will finally teach Daddy a lesson. You crazy bastard. You lost twice and you're still holding it in your heart. Ugger. Who do you think I am, Daddy? The musclehead who dreams of sinning against heaven roars. I am Aburka, the chairman of the Fire River Council, warrior commander of the Death King family, child of Daddy, and the one who dreams of teaching Daddy a lesson. Was this brat showing me his name value? Chapter 268. White Lion Religion 1. Baraya. My heart is like a torch. Aga Baraya. I shall commit an unfilial act. The goblins enthusiastically sang the Fireplace song, and I barely, just barely, dodged the axe swung by Aburka in front of me. But my heart was deeply unsettled. As I avoided the sixth strike, I yelled out. Hey! Don't sing Baraya here, you maniacs. Why can't we sing it? If I say don't sing it, then don't sing it. The teachings of the demonic cult are widely spread among the goblins. Through cultural projects like the fire painting play and military tactics like the Infernal Heavens formation, the goblins consciously or unconsciously lived by the teachings of the demonic cult. Agabaraya was a kind of chorus that boosted the morale of the goblins, and they were free to sing it as much as they wanted, but why sing Baraya Baraya just to catch me? Ha! When you captured the energy dragon, you didn't use Infernal Heavens formation and just did breathing exercises, so why are you going all out to hunt me down? Ugher. Hearing my words, Aberka chuckled. Do you really not understand, Daddy? Whoosh! Aberka swung his axe in a wide arc, destroying everything within its radius. Merely with wind pressure, he pulverized palm trees, rocks, and all kinds of life in between. Damn! I too, had I not hastily retreated, would have at least lost a heel. For us, Daddy is everything. What? Everything, I said. Thud. Aberka, with red light flowing in his eyes, approached me. His gaze was so intense that my heart skipped a beat. What? I thought maybe he was caught in disharmony by raising his spiritual energy. But that was not possible. Aberka was not so low in his level to be caught in disharmony, and in our demonic cult, being caught in disharmony, losing to oneself, is considered a disgrace. Simply. Daddy still doesn't realize how big a being he is to us. You haven't truly felt it. To the extent that I mistook it for disharmony, Aberka was drawing aura from his whole body. What are you talking about? Of course, I am your closest friend. That's what I'm saying. Ugher. Daddy truly doesn't know himself. Aberka chuckled. Then, as if the previous conversation was a joke, he opened up about his true feelings. As Daddy said, Daddy gave us characters. Watching Daddy look over us and painstakingly create characters for our goblin race, in accordance with the tribe's nature, even though we knew it in theory, it struck me differently. Ugher. It was worth seeing. Behind me, the goblins and Asuras, their flesh reddened, chimed in. Ugher. Ugher. As they added choruses to Aberka's words, it felt like a red wave becoming a massive tide approaching me. Do you remember the day when Daddy first taught us characters? The day he taught us how to pronounce them. I gripped the hilt of my sword tightly. A formidable aura was bubbling up from the red wave. It was like the sensation when the constellation killer was approaching me to kill me on the 50th floor. Something greater than me, stronger than me, and perhaps more desperate than me. The chilling intent to kill that I felt when he pointed its sword at me, now, I could intensely feel it from the red wave of these children. I measured the distance with my eyes and said. I remember. As vividly as if it were yesterday. Daddy taught letters to children whose intelligence was not yet fully developed. While teaching, he first created characters only for the things they loved. The things they played with. The things that made them happy. Gently. Mud is. Sky is O. Sun is. Moon is. Water is. Carving into soft mud with the claws of a lion, the days when I taught the little goblins how to write, still remain vividly in my mind. As a warm memory. Daddy must have known numerous languages. However, Daddy knew that the languages we needed in life were only about 7. So, Daddy could have blamed us. Why do you see the world so narrowly? This is what a tree is, this is what a mountain is. Learn more, know more. But he didn't blame us. Instead of blaming, Daddy rather wanted to properly unfold the little world we had. He didn't teach the children that the rain will stop soon, so don't worry when it rained. Instead, when we were frightened and shivering in primal fear, as the rain furiously hit the ground, Daddy took the lead and howled. Kee. using the goblin word for rain, ku. If translated into modern language, water comes. Carer. Ki. Water coming to the land, to the surface. Outside the hut, the rain poured incessantly. Little goblins huddled inside the hut, trembling. To the primitive goblin race, heavy rain was a kind of deity. It was the deity's anger manifesting as rain. Maybe we did something wrong to anger the deity. In a society at a tribal level, where language had not yet been intricately formed, it was difficult to come up with such clear sentences. In reality, at best, fragmented words like we, sky, wrong would have come out. An era where even their own fears could only be expressed in fragmented words. That was the tribe. A time when the color of the sky wasn't fixed, the reason for the sun and moon's rotation was a mystery, and all born creatures trembled in fear of what attacked from outside and the unknown feeling inside. Carer. Ki. Then someone howled. Kur. Ki. Ki. Water comes. Water comes to the land. Just that simple howl. Amidst the torrential rain in the primeval forest, as if the world would be swept away by raging currents at any moment, the white-maned lion roared endlessly on the rock. Water comes. Water comes. Water comes. Kur. Karak. It was sorcery. A spell clearer than any mysterious fortune-teller. Carer. Ki. Ki. Several goblins left the hut and approached the white lion. As half of the hut was already flooded by the heavy rain, the goblins had no hesitation. They climbed the high rock, slippery with rain, struggling several times. They continued to howl as they climbed. Ki. Kur. Ki. Kur. Ki. Water comes. Water comes to the land. As dozens of goblins struggled to reach the top, the white lion was there, chin held high, looking up at the dark sky. Ki. The goblins gasped for air, engulfed in fear. They were terrified. The dark clouds boiled as if about to unleash the deity's wrath at any moment. Lightning, thunderbolts, thunderstorms. To the goblins, who knew little, all these were divine powers. Incomprehensible, ungraspable, unavoidable. Only to be obeyed, as the deities favored them, pitted them, then only they can only survive today. Ki. Yet, the white lion roared defiantly. As the world wrapped in grey giants, everything murky, even the comfortable moisture tangled in swift winds causing disarray, even at a moment when the world could end, the white lion simply raised its head and howled. Ki. Water comes. Ki. Water comes. Ki. Rur. Care. Ki. Carer. The little goblins began clinging to the white lion's body. They clung to the lion's paws, tail, torso, mane, shivering and trembling in terror. They had no understanding of why the white lion was roaring, why they were drawn by that cry to come here, and why they tried to imitate the lion's howling. Ki. 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 Kur. Ki. The goblins shouted with all their might. Water is coming. Water is coming. Water is coming. Thud. The torrential downpour that lasted all night had finally weakened. The goblins, perched on distant rocks, were the first to notice. Tip, raindrops fell lightly on their hooked noses. Tip, raindrops softly landed on their wrinkly, green foreheads. Ki. What was happening? Kur. What miracle was unfolding? Ki. The goblins all looked up at the white lion. Its mane was drenched and elongated by the overnight rain, but the gleam in its eyes was brighter than the rising morning sun. The water that seemed it could destroy the world, had receded. Keka. The white lion growled contentedly. The harsh rain had passed, and now gentle droplets tenderly moistened the meadows. Pointing at the watery lights falling from the sky to the ground, the white lion declared. Keka. The goblins tilted their heads in wonder. Immersed in an odd sensation, the children echoed the white lion's words. Keka? Keka. Rain. Keka. Rain. Rain. Keka. And on that day, the goblin race realized something. The white lion might have intended to simply teach the primitives the word for rain. But it was more than that. The impact the white lion had on the goblins was too immense to be confined to just the word rain. Keka. The goblins triumphed over fear. They might have cowered in their safe huts, trembling, praying that the deities would favor them and pass by safely, muttering prayers, preparing altars and offering sacrifices to appease the wrath of the gods, preparing a sacrificial goblin every rainy season to kill, thus wasting 1,000 years. They might have called out rain in fear. It wasn't the water flowing on the land, but the water pouring from the sky. The water that rained down due to the anger of the gods. Thus, rain would have become a deity, and the name of rain became something much longer and more terrifying, like the sweeper of the world or the ruler of autumn's terror. But Aberka, as living witness of the goblins, he raised his axe. It didn't happen. Daddy didn't just teach us letters. No, he did, but he taught us something much greater. Daddy taught us victory. It was a victory over fear. The world was covered in the unknown. To hide from it, they had to burrow into tunnels and huddle under small huts. In ancient times, homes were not comfortable bases but mere shelters to escape the world. Thanks to Daddy, we conquered water. Ugger. Ugger. Thanks to Daddy, we conquered fire. Ugger. Ugger. Thanks to Daddy, we conquered thunderstorms, rivers, and seas. We even conquered the hell of salt mining, buried deep underground. Ugger. Ugger. Kekarii. Aberka spread his arms wide and shouted loudly. It is not a threatening name of a deity, but merely rain. Just rain. Something we triumphed over, something we cast off our fear. To us, Keka is not just a simple letter, it's the name of a war we won, and thus, our proud spoils of victory. Carer. Sky. It is not a god punishing us. We have stripped the sky, Keka, of its divine status. Sky. It's just the sky. We marvel at the purple silk it weaves at dawn, and we shed tears at its lazy red blush in the evening, but that is no different from the tears of pity we give to a defeated enemy. The sky. That too is the name of something we have plundered. Ugger. Ugger. There are two ways to use letters. To engrave something fearful into characters. While other races developed the character for fire, because they are afraid of fire, need to avoid it, and hope it doesn't come, we have engraved fire as a character solely to celebrate our victory. Because it's prey that we have successfully hunted and captured. We carved the character of fire in our damp caves and laughed at it. Gore. 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 In the jungle where dawn has not yet arrived. The fire blazed not in the sky but on the lowly earth. That is the name our fire holds. Thousands of Asuras raise their aura. When they fear fire, when they are scared of it, when they try to avoid it, when they try to control it, we just shout towards the blazing red gore. Ugger. Wonderful. The flames intensified. Fire, how splendid. How beautiful. Ugger. 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 They were all Asuras belonging to the Fire River Council. They had learned the first steps of martial arts through infernal divine power during their training days, became formidable warriors mastering the infernal heavens formation one by one, and finally reached a state where they occupied a seat in the Fire River Council, the elite of the elite. Daddy. In the front, a burqa stood with his arms spread, laughing. Kekerker. Kekerker. Behind him, Asuras, excited, shook spears, swords, axes, and fists. Daddy didn't just teach us letters. Nor did he teach us about the world. Nor did he simply teach us how to win, nor did he only teach us how to face, acknowledge, share, and overcome the fear that all life harbors in its heart. What did Daddy give us? What is Daddy to us? Is Daddy just a teacher who taught us many things? Ugger. 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 No. Then what is he? A god? The creator who gave us land and sky, allowing us to breathe? Is Daddy merely a god to us? Ugger. 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 No, that's not it. The musclehead who dreams of sinning against heaven roars. Then what is Daddy to us? My beloved compatriots. Those who, like me, love the mud, are enchanted by the falling rain, whose eyes tremble when the sky sobs, whose hearts pound when flames soar. What is Daddy to us? Kekerker. Kekerker. Yes. A burqa laughed heartily. To us Daddy is, our world. Daddy is everything to us. I am. We have conquered everything in this world. I, a burqa, even defeated death. Thus, we can sing songs filled with joy for every word. Every sentence is merely a trace of conquering fear. Every conversation echoes incessantly as a celebration of victorious battles. We are brave, we cry, we respect everything in the world that has fought us, and yet we laugh because we have won and will continue to win. Kekerker. Kekerker. Except for one thing. A burqa raised his axe and aimed it at me. Daddy. Kekerker. A pure white beast descended from the sky. In the language of the goblins, it signifies. It is neither a demon nor a god. It's our world. World. Born from your world, opening our eyes to your world, smelling the scents of your world, stepping into your world, we were happy. Ugger. We cry from the bottom of our hearts, Kekerker. We love this world. The entire jungle. In the shadows of the palm trees and shrubs, untouched by the dawn's light, it soared. On the dead land of a certain turtle, said to have created this continent, the Asuras who now rule it have lit a beacon. Infernal heavens formation. Hundreds of thousands of Asuras simultaneously raised the chant of Bariah. Now, it's time to put the final point on the last thing we have yet to conquer. Kekerker. Kekerker. More than I thought, much more. I was a much greater being to these children than I had thought. Such a being I had become. I closed my eyes. The sensation of the world's flames engulfing me. Strangely, those flames, brimming with love and affection for me, were not hot. Instead, only the joy of trying to overcome me was directly conveyed to my heart. There couldn't be a gentler flame to warm the heart. So it is. I recalled the scene when my master had cut through the snowy mountain. At that time, it wasn't just the towering peak that my master's heart had cut through. Can a person also become a world to someone? At that time, the master certainly cut through the season. She cut through the time that froze all life. She cut through the world. Yes. I gripped the hilt of my sword. Those who aspire to be a god to someone must be prepared to become a parent. With a metallic sound, I unsheathed a sword. Those who aspire to be a parent to someone, they should also be prepared to become their world. shine. The holy sword that had been with me for so long shone brilliantly. As a response to my deep sense of responsibility for giving life, my own life, and the world to the fire, the sword, once a goddess, shone white. You are fire, so you may well burn the world. I took out a pair of gloves from my pocket. Thump! I threw the white gloves, carrying Raviol's scent, towards them. Before engaging in a duel, identifying oneself is the way of the martial world. Our demonic cult, originating from the martial world, must also adhere to the respect for our ancestors. While ready to call upon the army of the Death King family at any moment. I am the second-ranked hunter of the Ascending City, a warrior of the Ejim Empire, the direct disciple of Heavenly Demon, the young master of the demon cult, the only moon of the Duke Ivantius family, the head of the Death King family, and your. Towards the children who have been victorious for thousands of years. I spoke of my history, richer in victories over even longer times. I am Kekerker. I unsheathed my sword. At that moment. World naming. Unnamed World 30-1316782 is officially registered. The name of this world is Lion World. Thump. Something fell onto my sword. May luck accompany the Lion World. A drop of water. A drop of rainwater splashed onto the blade of my sword. Chapter 269, White Lion Religion, 2. Rain. I watched the water droplet fall onto my blade. It's raining. Every aspect of the water droplet sliding slowly down was reflected in my mind as moments in time. Due to the heightened concentration from gathering aura throughout my body, my heart rate and senses were far superior to that of an ordinary person. Thump! I infused aura into my blade and flicked the water droplet away. My red aura instantly enveloped the droplet. Should I call it coating? I sent the droplet, now gilded with my aura, straight towards Aberka. Smack! The reddened water droplet hit Aberka's cheek. It burst. Just like a child playfully throwing a water balloon. A trace of red paint smeared and flowed down one side of Aberka's face. Aberka, who could have easily dodged my strike, accepted it as if it was a delightful prank. Showing off that Daddy's mastery of aura has reached its peak now, doesn't really impress me. Aberka chuckled. Mixing aura into a water droplet that landed on Daddy's blade, infusing it with sorrow and resentment contained in the aura, and finally, the single droplet that Daddy threw at me is not just one of many raindrops that will be washed away, but something more disgusting, depressing, making me feel like I need to help someone. Impressive. Such is the marvelous subtlety of aura. Aberka. In the midst of this brief exchange, I fully composed myself. I thought about all the things that made me who I was, Kim Gongja's tendency to interject in awkward situations to somehow steer the conversation, Kim Gongja's tendency to elicit goodwill from someone he met for the first time, etc. I shed the shells that composed my identity one by one, focusing entirely on being a cultist. The one wielding the sword in this place now is the young master of the demonic cult. Do you think I created it? What? A raindrop is just condensed moisture that can no longer bear its weight and falls. There is no reason beyond physical action. There was just water, just force, and just gravity. That's why there are raindrops. My master. I passed on the lesson I had learned from the master of the demonic cult about snowflakes to my son. I imbued human grievances and resentments into a water droplet with aura, turning it into a projectile weapon. I mixed something that wasn't there originally, so naturally, the enemy can't defend against it. Isn't that a typical demonic cult way of meddling with aura? But, my son, you are mistaken. To the righteous faction, the earth is just earth. To mimic the earth means that a martial artist themselves becomes a speck of dirt. But to the demon cult, what is the earth? It's an enemy that you must dig up with broken fingernails to bury your sister's body. That very day, it was so desolate that my sister caught the eyes of the governor. Despite having worked to the point of breaking, neither I, nor my parents, nor even my grandparents ever owned it. It remains hidden in the ledger of the governor, mocking our insignificant lives and forcing us to be aware of our lowly existence. Sword Emperor. I passed on the explanation I heard from another of my masters to my offspring. I did not mix in something of mine. Then whose did you mix in? People's. All the grudges and resentments of people living in the world gather to form the heavens, and that is called infernal heavens. I am the young master of the demon cult. Its representative. Therefore, the emotions mixed in aren't mine. I dare not claim them as my own. They belong to someone who once existed, who may exist someday. They are grudges. They are resentments. They are hatred. This is the sword of infernal heavens. I swung my sword. Thousands of red raindrops shot out simultaneously, horizontally. What I was responsible for, what I had to safeguard, what I had to represent, those precious things struck a burqa from the side. Boom! With an unbelievably loud roar, akin to a whale, a burqa was swept away and hurled through the air. The jungle shook violently. In the drenched forest, the birds could not take flight. Instead, the branches swayed, sending the droplets of water on them flying in unison. Indeed. In the middle of it all, from a crater carved into the heart of the jungle, a burqa spoke. Indeed. So it was. A burqa laughed boldly, then thumped his two fists together with a bang. In that case. A burqa stood up. With his outline flickering in the rain, the white giant smiled, revealing his pearly teeth. This time, I will show you our world. Even as he spoke, the rain continued to intensify. This was the most humid jungle on the continent, so rain was a daily occurrence in this season. Drizzles. Monsoon rains. Misty rains and torrential downpours. Schools of piranhas swarmed in the nearby rivers, while eels living in fresh water swiftly preyed on these piranhas. The jungle was being drenched in a heavy rain.
Oh.
In an instant, the jungle was enveloped in a low mist. Beneath the mist so thick that one couldn't see an inch ahead, the river flowed, and piranhas occasionally leaped out from the water before disappearing back into the mist. Below, the noise of fish flesh being violently torn apart could be heard.
Oh.
The bases of the palm trees were submerged in the mist. The trees, their bases obscured, appeared to be hanging in midair, as if attached not to the ground but to the sky. They resembled pillars in a temple carved by a sculptor in worship of a god. Hundreds of thousands, millions, tens of millions of trees wrapped in mist turned the entire area into a damp temple of fog. And from beneath the fog, half hidden by the palm trees, now pillars of the temple, centered around me, tightly encircling and besieging, the Asuras let out their throaty chants.
Oh. Oh. Oh.
Indeed. I looked up at the sky. I realized that those dark clouds were not just rain clouds pushed by the sea breeze. Rumble. Lightning streaked between the clouds. The dark clouds collided, engulfing each other's thunder as they clashed. I wondered why a burqa didn't challenge me to a one-on-one duel but instead attacked with a pack. Perhaps he wanted to fight with Infernal Heaven's formation, not Infernal Heaven's demonic art. The moment I realized this, the sound of summoning rain echoed throughout the jungle.
Oh. Oh. Oh.
Ugger. Ugger. Ugger.
Oh.
Kirka.
Oh.
Kirka.
Oh.
Kirka.
Oh.
Ugger. Kirka.
Oh.
Kirka.
Oh.
Kirka.
Oh.
Ugger. The goblins struck the ground with their weapons, beating the palm trees with their fists, and slammed the rocks with their feet, awakening the dormant sounds in the forest. It was a wild rhythm. Having evolved, they became Asuras, and their auras blazed red without exception. Kirka.
Oh.
As a goblin struck a wooden drum, the aura mercilessly resonated within the wood. The palm tree became a giant instrument, noisily howling. Boom! Boom! Good. The mist became an invisible and intangible wall, dividing this world from the other. Thus, the river under the mist became the river Styx of hell, and where it emerged from the mist became the surface of the earth. But with even the land obscured by the mist, what could one rely on in this world? Excellent. The leaning palm trees. Piercing through the fog, the palm trees lazily stretching into the sky were the only refuge from the river Styx. Therefore, these trees were all pillars of a temple, singing the grace and glory of the gods. Small animals living in the jungle, snakes, squirrels, spiders, all sought refuge in the palm trees. Infernal heavens formation. Extra law. Golden chaos flower garden. It wasn't even complete yet. Despite merely causing rain and spreading thick fog. This space, because of the goblins, had become a very strange stage. Blue comes out of the indigo but is bluer than the indigo. I admired the sight of the Asuras performing the infernal heavens formation. It's beautiful. Heaven above. The ash-gray sky stretched low, covered with dark clouds. On one side of the cloud, rumble, lightning threatens to strike but is swallowed by a neighboring cloud, and again, from the other side of the cloud, roar, a thunderstorm descends. Earth below. Endless fog envelopes the jungle. The flowing river, rocks in the river, rough bushes, and insects chirping beneath them. All are concealed by the fog. They now silently whisper their murmurs. Insects, birds, and beasts are invisible beyond the fog, occasionally appearing as ominous shadows. ZZZRRR. KR, Kiki, Ki, KRRRR, Gor, Pi. Unintelligible noise. Discordant sounds made by the shadows. My sight was limited to the sky covered with dark clouds and the earth shrouded in dark mist. Between the half-lowered sky and the half-raised ground, rows of palm trees hung, bending under their own weight and desperately clinging to something.
Ha! Ha!
I lightly lifted my sword and poked at the fog. Swoosh! Swoosh! The thickness of the mist did not diminish at all. Instead, an even denser gray fog gathered, forming a river of mist. This is no ordinary fog. It's made of aura. As I disturbed it further, the mist began to take on a bloody hue. The color of the aura exuded by the goblins was starkly revealed. Fog that covers this entire area. It's worth the special meal of the energy dragon. Blood-red mist flowed from the fog cut by my sword. It streamed like a brook through the ashen fog, becoming redder where it flowed, until eventually, the fog covering the ground was completely dyed red. In an instant, I found myself plunged into another realm. Is this my river Styx? No. Daddy. Splash. Walking on the river concealed by the fog, producing a sound more akin to the ringing of bells than water, a burka took a step towards me. This is our origin. Origin? Ugger. When we first opened our eyes in the beginning, and looked at the world with tender eyes, the world reflected in us was merely like this. A burka looked around. The sky wasn't blue. There was no reason to look up at a blue sky. For us to take interest in the sky, it first had to rain, and the sky when it rained was always ashen. Thus, to us, the sky was always just peculiar lumps clouded with dark clouds, suffering from indigestion, belching thunder. And the earth? The earth was something to fear. Any beast could harm us. Even a tiny insect seemed strong enough to poison our children. A place where large and small demons roam. A place where an unknown beast howled in the distance, and adults who said they would return by nightfall never did. Why? We don't know. We don't know anything. Why the beast howls, why the adult doesn't return. The world was only full of unknowns, shrouded in thick fog. Just occasionally. A burqa spoke of the world in the beginning. A world of gray, with ash-colored skies stretching infinitely above and below. We only had something to cling to, like these palm trees, and left to find a place to hang on to. Anything that saved me and became a home for my family was indeed a god. We were merely wanderers, searching for gods to cling to, navigating between hell and the river Styx. I smiled slowly. It wasn't easy raising you here. The only words you knew were water, sky, earth, that's all. Ugh. With the world appearing to us in such a way, how could we need many words? The rain poured. Even if the rain clouds were summoned by the aura of the Asuras, the rainwater falling from the clouds seemed gentle. It was rain. I opened my mouth wide and drank a few sips of rain. It was refreshing. It drenched my entire body with aura much cleaner than the old aura. Nothing happens if we stay here. A burqa said. Daddy. Daddy loves us. No one among our goblins doubts that love. But wasn't it hard? Hard? What do you mean? Well, it's hard now, facing this collective act of filial piety, TL. Filial piety here is used as sarcasm. Since Daddy led us out of this primeval forest, there have been many events. There was progress. Conquest. Defeat. And all races being enslaved. Surely, one would not imagine that there have been no deaths. Those who died being tortured, those who died by mistake, those who died due to bad luck, those who were stabbed by spears while resisting the snails, those who died ridiculed as mere entertainment for spectators while dressed as gladiators, those who died trying to escape, those who died failing to escape. Silence ensued. Does Daddy feel responsible for all this? A long silence ensued. Chapter 270, White Lion Religion, 3. I turned my eyes away from the beautiful ashen river Styx and looked at a burqa. I know someone like that. What? I know of such a person. The Tower Master. I thought of someone who felt everything was their responsibility, no, more than that, someone who made everything their responsibility. But I am not that person. Ki. A distant rocky mountain. Piercing through the fog and soaring high on the rocky mountain, a white beast climbed up and howled. Small green creatures, frightened of such a beast, were seen here and there.
Grr.
They seemed to be contemplating whether to climb to where the white beast was, clinging to the rocks below. Since I chose a different path than that person, I planted my sword upright. Of course, you can blame me. The mistakes you make, the curses you'll hear from others, all of it, might feel like it's because I carelessly chose you as my race and sent you into the world. For being born in vain. For being raised in vain. So, feel free to blame me, but come to me when you are stronger than me. I smirked. Come to me if you can find someone who will make you happier than me. I swung my holy sword. Shiny, the goddess of protection, shone brightly, as her name suggests, splitting the ashen clouds in two. Through the gap created by the slash, the blue sky peeked through. If anyone can make you more lovable than me, more stylish than me, more intelligent than me, and more beautiful than me, and yes, if someone can do that, then come and complain, I will gladly admit my failure in parenting. Until then, I am the greatest daddy there is. I clenched my right hand. Estelle. Yes, Lord. Suddenly. Without any prior notice, Estelle was on one knee beside me. She must have been waiting in a different place from where our hunters were gathered, ready to appear instantly whenever I called. Lord's Counselor Estelle, at your service. It looks pretty pitiful in the rain, doesn't it? Estelle glanced up briefly. Despite the pouring rain reminiscent of a jungle's rainy season, she looked indifferent, as if staring at a light drizzle on a neighborhood street. Yes. It's trivial. Clear it away. I smiled and extended my right hand. Estelle also smiled and firmly grasped my hand. Yes, Lord. I'll clear it. Our auras resonated through our clasped hands. It wasn't just the mingling and strengthening of red and black auras. We circulated aura as one, bearing the same vision. Recalling the blood-red torrential rain on a distant continent. Infernal Heavens Formation. Get more out of your browsing experience with our custom content AD. Discovery feed. Get more out of your browsing experience with our custom content. Read Ex-Husbands Regret, Ryan and Charlotte, Regret 250, Find Novel. Read Ex-Husbands Regret, Ryan and Charlotte, Regret 250, Find Novel. Extra Law. Sorrowful Heaven, Sorrowful Rain. It rained. Was the primitive fear too terrible, goblins? It rained. The sky of the ignorant past was just gloomy, merely stirring ominous premonitions and sinister feelings in your hearts, making it too overwhelming to venture outside? It rained. Such rain is no longer something we need to fear. It rained. The grievances of villagers unjustly burned to death, the countless screams of death in the Empire, are encapsulated in the crimson rainwater, falling as part of the infernal heavens formation, spread by the Asuras. Tuck! The blood drops broke through the fluffy fog and reached the ground in an instant. Tuck! Before the fog could recover, another droplet descended, mercilessly eroding the base of the fog. Tuck! To-do-do-do-duck. To-do-do. Tuck. Do-do-do-duck. The fear you will face from now on is even far worse. The fog couldn't withstand the carpet bombing of bloody rain. It burst, faded, was crushed, and was torn to shreds by the raindrops. What was revealed as the infernal heavens formation was unraveled was the bare ground of the jungle. In the landscape devoid of any magic or mysteries, just the mere earth as it was. Our formation, deployed with all our might. It's impossible, Ugger. We're overwhelmingly superior in terms of aura. As the bare ground was revealed, the goblins' figures were revealed too. The goblins were in a state of panic. They had intended to use the fog to conceal themselves and attack me with invisible swords and axes. Their strategy had failed before it could even start. I laid my heart bare and spoke. The place we live, this tower, from the 50th floor onwards, it's filled with masters who have came in from all sorts of worlds. Surely you don't think all parents are like us, do you? We communicated and understood each other. I can understand. The fact that you are fighting me now, it's not because you dislike me, but merely to achieve a graceful end. Estelle's autumn rain had melted away all the fog by now. The last of the races gathered in the jungle were all looking at me. But those gathered on the 50th floor will be different. I said. The existence known as the princess said that although the content of each tower varies, from the 30th floor onwards, it's generally similar. To accept you goblins as humans, to embrace you as children, first of all, our hunters need to accept all this as reality. Not as NPCs. Not as dungeons. But seeing each and every one of you as living beings before their eyes. But how many towers have truly prepared their hearts in such a way? Even our tower, when the Black Dragon Master was the second in the tower rankings, before my regression, didn't we consider the tower as some kind of game? How many of them cleared the 40th floor by exterminating the races they nurtured? I recalled the 14 Asuras who perished in the previous tower and looked at the hundreds of thousands of Asuras now in front of me. If there's one such tower, it would mean millions. 10 towers would mean hundreds of millions. 100 towers would mean billions. There would be countless bodies, with such people standing over them. Before long, the vassals of the Death King family had gathered around me. Kim Yul, with his long hair tied with the headband I gave him, quietly looked down at the jungle. Sylvia Ivanale, with her hands clasped in front of her, stood silently, indifferent to the millions of human gazes looking up at her. Those who don't see people as people. All of us were soaked in Estelle's autumn rain. Lives that were snuffed out without even a chance to scream. Steam began to rise from the goblins' shoulders. It was the heat of their hearts being released through their skin. My children, who had learned martial arts of demonic cult and danced in fire plays, knew better than anyone what I was talking about. A place where such scoundrels strut around as victors. The past Flame Emperor. A place swarming with those who idolize such scoundrels as heroes. The past me. That place is right there. I raised my hand and pointed to the red sky. The world beyond the 50th floor. If that place wasn't hell, then what is? Quest progress. The vote of the vampire race begins. At that moment, the Black Dragon Master landed silently beside me. She stood beside me, expressionlessly gazing at the world drenched in blood. The Death King is right. Anastasia. It's hard to see it as solely the fault of us humans. After all, the wolves that appear in the hunting grounds are called monsters, and when you read the minds of people appearing in the Ejim Empire, they're labeled as NPCs. Well, maybe that's because the Ejim Empire is a recreation of a once-destroyed world. The Black Dragon Master's lips curved in a near sneer. Even if there are reasons not to kill, humans will kill. If there's no consequence to killing, then it's practically granting free rein to massacre. If the world beyond the 50th floor, as the Death King said, is a battleground for all towers, then finding someone who is not a slaughterer might actually be more difficult. The Black Dragon Master turned her head. Bats were hanging from the dense palm tree branches. Sorry. I interfered with your conquest of the continent time and time again. Despite being your mother. But this world is broader than you think. The enemies you have to face are more than you can imagine. Of course, there are monsters that you cannot defeat. You must have observed other races for thousands of years. The goblins won't betray you first, no matter what. Nor will the ocean race. The noble race too. Even now, the blood-sucking race and the fairy race. Kids, your task isn't to vie for supremacy on this narrow continent, quarreling with docile races. The Black Dragon Master smiled gently. Unite and strike against the enemies that will threaten your world. Flap flap. The bats flapped their wings. Voting completed. Vote for option 2, 2.45%. Vote for option 1, 97.55%. We are blood allies. Stage cleared. The 43rd floor stage has been cleared. 43rd floor. The highest floor reached in the world before the regression, the 40th floor, had already been surpassed. Stages that even the Flame Emperor had failed once and the Black Dragon Master had despaired over. We conquered them one after another. But that wasn't all. Quest progress. The Dream Demon Tribe's voting begins. I blinked and looked at the Black Dragon Master. The Dream Demons weren't originally included in the races we were taking care of. Then, as she made eye contact with me, the Black Dragon Master chuckled softly. Kim Gongja. Sometimes you really underestimate me. What? There are others besides you frantically trying to clear stages. Remember I told you I used up all my points to bring in the Dream Demon tribe and had no choice but to drop out? Have you ever thought about what someone like me would risk elimination for? Voting completed. Vote for option 2, midnight %. Vote for option 1, 100%. Indeed, even I couldn't help but be slightly taken aback. Not a single person opposed. Well, let's just say I successfully concluded various contracts. As much as we are friends, I must respect the confidentiality of the contracts, right? The Black Dragon Master winked lightly. Stage cleared. The 44th floor stage has been cleared. Really? I smiled and turned back. Aberka. I looked at my son. You know, I don't think choosing you was a mistake. Even if I could go back, I would choose you again. Even if I were reborn, I would raise you again. If I am the best father to you, then you are the best children to me. I know. Aberka clenched his jaw, saying, Ugger. I know. Daddy, it's just. If this daddy seems to be carrying too heavy a burden, and you wanted to become stronger, to join me, and that's why you challenged me to a duel. If this challenge is because what I carry seems too heavy, and you want to become stronger to share the burden with me, to be with me. There's no need for that. I smiled brightly. Just as I am precious to you like a whole world, so are you to me, Aberka. You see the world as I see it. You feel as I feel. But, Aberka, I too will see the world in the way you see it, and feel as you feel. We are people of the same world. I held the back of Aberka's hand. Of the same humanity. I looked past Aberka at the many goblins lined up. My friends. Beyond the 50th floor, there will be those who have not been as fortunate as us. Even those who consider this fortune, treating all this as a mere game, becoming conquerors and rulers, indulging in pleasure. Quest progress. The goblins' voting begins. Let's go. Voting completed. In the name of infernal heavens. With the feet and mouth of fire painting. Vote for option 2, midnight %. Let's show them who we are. Aberka was silent. But it was not an ominous silence, rather, it was a silence of accepting my words. Aberka's fangs were always sharp, so it didn't take long to chew and digest my words. Are we to kill those who deserve to die, Daddy? We shall rightly save those who need to live. How will we know who should live, how they should live, and what's good for them? Through my death. I pulled out a dagger from my bosom. And I tapped the tape-wrapped handle of the dagger. Through their lives. Is that so, huh? Aberka nodded and muttered to himself. Then he firmly grasped my hand that had tapped the dagger. Silently. It's okay. I stroked Aberka's red arm. Vote for option 1, 100%. We are stronger than any tower. Stage cleared. And more capable than any tower. The 45th floor stage has been cleared. We can save countless worlds, numerous people. I looked down. At my children who would henceforth be called Asuras, the lowest dwellers, who will eventually rise to the heavens as heavenly demons. I reached out my hand to those children. Let's ascend the tower together. Chapter 271, Hidden Message, 1. There's an epilogue to this story. Races who met their god in person for the first time in thousands of years, literally face to face, celebrated with a festival. Was it a neat meeting? The various races were happy to discover that their parents were better than expected. It was while we sat together on a broad rock, watching the jungle festival. The black dragon witch said, as if she had realized something. Why? Oh. It's just that, hearing from the lady who walks the mirage, you realize there are hunters from other worlds ascending the tower, not just us. It's hard to imagine. Well, yes. Right? I glanced back subtly. A ghost was floating and yawning in midair. Even as a ghost, it burped, gurgle. Hoo hoo hoo. It was an amusing sight I thought would be fun to show others. Eh? Why suddenly look back? Is someone there? The black dragon witch narrowed her brows and followed my gaze into the empty air. Of course, to Anastasia's eyes, it would just be a view of the jungle with vines hanging from palm trees. The black dragon witch lacks spiritual sensitivity, unfortunately. No, just felt a presence. Probably a snail or a squirrel. Please continue. Well, anyway. So, strong figures from various worlds are flooding into the tower, right? Yes. Among them, there must surely be hunters much stronger than us. Death King. As you said, we are strong, but we're not invincible. There might be forces more ruthless, stronger, and more numerous than us. Yes. So, what I'm thinking is... The black dragon witch slightly lifted the corners of her lips. Did she herself find it a bit awkward? Ridiculous? Absurd? Anyway, it was that kind of smile. Can't we just not ascend past the 50th floor and live? Don't misunderstand. I'm not suggesting we do that. Nor am I saying we will. I'm simply thinking that many other hunters and tower residents might feel that way. I quietly drank my tea. That seems likely. Far from the city and villages, in the jungle, especially since all races had gathered for the war against the energy dragon. It was difficult to find proper tea leaves, let alone a cup to hold the tea. Yet, the goblins had diligently collected sturdy leaves. They chose non-toxic leaves, overlapped and knotted them, creating a plausible jungle-made leaf teacup. The goblin children shyly giggled and presented the teacup to me. The jungle is cold at dawn. The body gets cold. Ugh, the day is only happy when you feel warm inside. That was the offering I received this dawn. As a god, perhaps no one else has received a more delightful offering than this, and as a parent, hardly anyone has received a cuter devotion than this. It's blissful. Many people probably feel that way. I took a sip from the world's most luxurious teacup. The warm sensation slowly enveloped my throat and belly. Human care isn't just visible in smiles or laughter, but something that could reach deep into someone's heart. That's true. We have already incorporated the continent ruled by the Aegean Empire in our tower. The magic books we could obtain there are just the least valuable resources. Millions of manpower, endless monsters and prey, minerals, gold, oil. There are already many extremists advocating to drive out the Aegean Empire. The black dragon witch lowered her voice. Like what America did to its natives. If we take away all the land they occupied and plunder their resources, won't we, with our overwhelming advanced civilization, become the winners of the new world? Thank you, Anastasia. If the black dragon witch hadn't strictly limited stage-to-stage movement, such incidents would have already happened. I'll gladly accept your gratitude. But, I cannot forever suppress the voices of extremists. Kim Gongja. You are a hero. The black dragon witch's face became serious. It was the expression of a close friend offering truly earnest advice to a dear comrade. Thus, I felt that her saying, "You are a hero," was not a compliment, but rather the beginning of a warning. The reason you've been treated as a hero until now is that you really haven't been involved in governance at all. Black Dragon Witch, 10,000 Temple, Merchants Union, Chinmumun, Civil Militia. The top-tier guilds offered you the position of Deputy Guild Master, But you never once used that title to wield power. You didn't get involved in politics. Do you understand what I mean? If I start governing the tower, the mask of a hero will be stripped away. Exactly. The mask will split in two. One half will be held by those who fervently follow you, and the other half will be trampled and shattered by those who brandish spears against you. It will split into two factions. Indeed. Perhaps due to experiencing civil war in the outside world, the Black Dragon Witch's words carried a heavy conviction and strong intuition. If the two factions are evenly matched, a civil war will break out. Guilds that follow you and those that dislike you. Divided like that, they'll fight over who will seize control of our tower. This time, it won't happen. Right. This time there won't be a civil war. The reason is simple. The 5 guilds ruling the tower from the top. Black Dragon Witch, 10,000 Temple, Merchants Union, Civil Militia, Chinmumun, all strongly support you. Our relationship is built on unprecedented trust. But what about the other side? Those who want to snatch and shatter my mask, the extremists, are simply too weak. Far too weak. There's no way a war can happen. Therefore, I'm planning a purge. A purge? Yes. I'll eliminate all dissidents and extremists. A brief silence followed. Somewhere, the sound of wood turning to charcoal in a bonfire could be heard. I was not listening to that sound. Instead, I recalled a story the heretic questioner had told me in Raviol's world. I remembered the phrase that kept repeating, "You have died." Anastasia. I looked into the Black Dragon Witch's eyes. That purge once completely broke the relationship between the guild masters. Long ago. After the Great Purge that cost hundreds of thousands of lives, the relationship between the 5 major guilds collapsed. The Sword Saint descended from being the leader of the civil militia. The Crusader stayed as the deputy leader instead of ascending. The Black Dragon Witch hid in the shadows, and the venomous snake, the heretic questioner. The scenery of the rainy street seen through the half-closed eye. Remembering another world shown by the Tower Master, I brought up this topic, but the Black Dragon Witch did not remain silent. She immediately retorted. Yes, that's true. But Kim Gongja, you appeared, and thanks to you, we all became good friends again. I'm truly grateful for that. The Black Dragon Witch took a breath and continued. But back then, the 5 major guilds weren't tightly holding power like now. That's why it was difficult to sort out and get rid of the rotten apples. That was the cause of so much unnecessary noise. But now the situation is different. The relationship between the 5 major guilds is better than ever, and I've been accumulating information about influential hunters within the tower for a long time. I roughly know their ideologies and what they've been doing. We just need to identify and deal with the extremists. Quickly. And discreetly. The Black Dragon Witch spoke decisively. Nobody will even know that they are dead. Her words made me recall a certain alley. There, I remembered an unnamed hunter who died. And then I thought of a certain hunting ground. There, I remembered an unnamed hunter who died and now resides in my shadow. I crossed my arms. After thinking, I spoke. What happens next? People keep coming in. The extremists you talked about will increase over time. What will you do about them? The Black Dragon Witch bit her lip slightly. Then she said, "We'll have to deal with them. Skin peels and becomes scabs. Digested food turns to waste. Accumulated nutrients become fat. These are the inevitable byproducts that need to be managed, necessary actions to maintain an ideal self. These are the tasks we must keep performing. Without them, it's impossible to maintain an ideal organization. Anastasia. I reached out and placed my hand on Anastasia's hand. Despite the jungle's stifling heat, my friend's hand was always as cold as if it were holding ice. There was a time we talked about this before. In the past. During the conquest of the world of the evangelist of everlasting happiness. Bring them to me. I declared to the black dragon witch, the heretic questioner, the count, the crusader, the venomous snake, that I would become their king and lead them. I asserted that I would take charge. I had no intention of retracting my declaration as a mistake. Even at this moment, it remains the same. Who is this person? Does he truly deserve to be purged? Anastasia, you can advise and warn me about him, but in the end, the one who will make the judgment is me. I will look into his eyes, observe his life, and make my decision. I will decide. So, bring them to me first.
Ah.
The black dragon witch sighed. It wasn't a sigh of fatigue but one imbued with sadness. So, you plan to persuade them? Choosing to kill will be my last option. How difficult that task is. Once you get a taste for killing, persuasion feels bothersome. But, Anastasia, that's the right sensibility. You should find murder the most difficult option. The black dragon witch closed her mouth. After a moment of silence, she slowly continued. Since you are, at least nominally, the deputy guild master of Black Dragon Witch, you can roam our guild without much issue. I won't guide you, but you figure out who the extremists are and try to persuade them. Yes. I smiled. Thank you, Anastasia, for listening to me. A truly grateful conversation, Black Dragon Witch. Thud. There was a sound of footsteps behind us. Someone approached without any warning, suddenly making noise within 10 meters. It took me 0.5 seconds to grasp and unsheath my sword. Black Dragon Witch. I agree. Instant teleportation. It took Anastasia 1.5 seconds to grab my sleeve, seek agreement, and activate the skill. Master, please step back. Oh my. To come unannounced to our family head, what kind of uncivilized intruder might this be? Estelle and the demon lords descended from the top of the palm trees, emerged from the dark bushes, and came out from the shadows of the rocks, all within 2 seconds. Who? Then Anastasia and I completed our teleportation to a safe distance. By this time, my holy sword was already drawn. Hundreds of my guards began to perfectly surround the area. 3 seconds. In just 3 seconds, we had perfectly responded to the intrusion of an unidentified intruder. The intruder stroked his beard. His face was masked. His voice was altered with aura, making it difficult to discern his expression or identity. His body was covered with a robe, concealing his identity. A true intruder. However, it was clear from the atmosphere that the intruder was quite surprised. Even though I intended to test how much your skills had improved as a joke, this is a failed prank. It could be shrugged off as a personal embarrassment, but what I've witnessed is astonishing. The protection you have is near perfect. Yet, there was a rhythm in the altered voice that was hard to disguise. I gauged the intruder's physique, posture, and the intensity of his aura. And, in a dumbfounded voice, I called out the intruder's name. Could it be Sword Saint? It's been a while. The intruder removed his mask. Before our eyes was a familiar face. A smile graced the face of an aged man, his wrinkles adding to his dignified appearance. I met the heretic questioner on my way here. We had a brief chat. He swore allegiance to you, and the Black Dragon Witch has become your friend, hasn't she? Up to that point, I understand, having lived a considerable life myself. I know that sometimes incredible things happen to us. I can accept that. But... The Sword Saint smiled slightly. Seeing the Sword Saint smile was rare, and when he did, it was with a purity like a child, leaving me no choice but to gaze at it blankly. I heard that the deputy commander of the civil militia has also become your friend. I couldn't bring myself to ask her directly, so I went to the leader of Merchants' Union and asked if it was true. She confirmed it with a refreshing smile. I was amazed. Truly, life is full of unexpected events. I relaxed and sighed. Really? Was it necessary to confirm that, Elder? Sneaking around in disguise without our knowledge? Of course. The Sword Saint then removed the cloak covering him. It was an important event that had to be confirmed. Thump. As the straw coat fell, the Sword Saint's true attire was revealed. A suit fit for heading to an office any moment. The perfectly tailored black suit elegantly covered his thighs and forearms. It's about deciding whether I should retire or not. The refined elegance of the black coat couldn't disguise the Sword Saint's true stature. The suit followed the contours of his muscles gracefully. Only the red tie, an essential item for an office worker, hung loosely, providing a bit of relief to the otherwise tense suit. Number 1 in the hierarchy. For over 10 years, people had witnessed the Sword Saint just like that. Retire? What do you mean by that? While I was struck by the Sword Saint's appearance, the black dragon witch pressed on the intriguing topic. Her gaze was sharp. Have you finally grown fond of the idea of being an old man in the backroom? Congratulations. You've been like a retired old man ever since you left the civil militia, but now you'll finally realize your true place. Really? When you were chasing the Demon King with Kim Gongja, I thought maybe you had changed a bit, but after that, you've been just as lazy. I did my best in my own way. That attitude is annoying. The black dragon witch frowned. You did the same this time as well. The pure race you chose had almost no impact on history. They were a race that, originally, wouldn't have been surprising if they caused great disturbances. You, as a god, must have commanded them to live in seclusion and retreat, right? The old man smiled faintly. It was an uncommon occurrence. I won't deny it. Why? Because you're considering retirement, as you said? No matter where I stood in the outside world, now I am just one hunter. My profession is a swordsman. The day a swordsman retires from the sword is only when he dies and lets go of his sword. I have been watching over you. Not surveillance, no, that's not the right word. There's a better expression. Perhaps it was just my feeling, but the tension around us seemed to intensify. It was mainly due to the black dragon witch glaring at the Sword Saint with suspicion. The Sword Saint nodded once, as if understanding the black dragon witch's gaze. But that was all. The Sword Saint wiped the smile from his lips and spoke softly. I have been testing you. Testing. The black dragon witch let out a scoffing laugh. Still speaking from your high horse. Really, who is testing whom here? If. The Sword Saint said. If the Death King had accepted the to purge from the black dragon witch, I would have used all my strength to kill the Death King. Right here, right now. At that moment, the encirclement was completed. Estelle drew his red sword, facing off against the Sword Saint. The demon lords formed a line to support Estelle. Shring! Shring! The sound of swords being drawn echoed from all directions. 1,000 followers, each hidden in the shadows of the jungle and behind palm trees, formed a surrounding formation, ready to pounce at any moment. None of them uttered a word. Thousands of eyes silently watched the Sword Saint's hands, feet, waist, and eyes. Under their gaze, the sword saint was dissected limb by limb. Should the sword saint raise his aura or harbor any killing intent, 1,000 swords would strike along those lines, dismembering him. But the sword saint only kept his eyes on mine the whole time. I slowly sheathed my sword back into its scabbard. The black dragon witch nudged my shoulder from the side, but it didn't matter. Elder. I too looked into the sword saint's eyes. I know you would never harm me. The eyes of the aged swordsman were clear and bright. Chapter 272, Hidden Message, 2. Are you so certain? That I won't kill you? Yes. I nodded affirmatively. You could have ambushed us earlier without making any noise. The black dragon witch might have lost an arm, and I might have been injured too. You had the perfect timing, but you deliberately made noise to reveal your presence, didn't you? It was a threat, a warning. If anything like a purge happens, I won't stand idly by. That's the clear message you showed to me, or rather to the black dragon witch. There's already a steel-like trust between you and me. Amidst the still heavy tension surrounding us, I smiled and approached the sword saint. Hey! Kim Gongja. Don't go. Stay with me, you fool. Naturally, the black dragon witch panicked. Don't you hear me? Stay with me so we can use instant teleportation or something. Kim Gongja. Really? This lunatic. The black dragon witch raged behind me as if saying, are you out of your mind? Interestingly, the voice of her anger was getting closer to my back. Meaning, while the black dragon witch scolded me for going, she was actually actively following me. Towards a swordsman who had never lost the first place in the hierarchy for over 10 years. The sword saint watched me approaching. A laugh escaped the wrinkled lips of the old man. Oh ha ha. We both stopped in our tracks, bewildered by the sudden burst of laughter. We exchanged glances, asking each other what was going on, but the black dragon witch just shrugged. Oh ha ha ha. The old man's laughter grew. As if he had witnessed something he had never expected to see in his lifetime, the sword saint laughed heartily, holding his belly in a manner unbefitting his station. With each laugh, his neatly groomed white beard trembled. Has he gone senile? The black dragon witch approached me with a disgusted expression. I cleared my throat. Should I contact the pharmacist and ask for some dementia medicine? Come to think of it, the pharmacist is also in your line. How do you always manage to recruit such promising talents? I think we need to establish a fine system for hoarding talent. What kind of strange system is that? As evident from the black dragon witches and my idle chat, the sword saint's laughter continued for quite a long time. Finally, the sword saint stopped laughing. What was so amusing? How could I not laugh? Young man. The once cold and decisive owner of Black Dragon Witch, known as the Black Witch, who wouldn't hesitate to kill, is now so concerned about your safety. He changed the way he addressed me from Death King to young man. I preferred being called young man over Death King. It felt much more comfortable. Was it like being treated like a grandson by a grandfather? There was something pleasant about the resonance in the sword saint's use of young man. You. I was worried that you might have changed. The sword saint continued. You now truly belong to the highest echelons of this tower. It's natural for you to be friends with the 5 guild masters. Young man. I was worried that you might be influenced by those guild masters without realizing it, picking up their bad influences. What? The Black Dragon Witch bristled. Bad influences? How dare you say that about us? Did that upset you? Of course, it would. What makes you think you're so superior? The black dragon witch bared her teeth, her expression one of wanting to bite off the sword saint's neck. You've purged together and yet you act all high and mighty, pretending to be noble. After stepping down as the civil militia leader, you should have spent your remaining days quietly in a hermitage, not roaming around killing hunters suspected of being murderers. Acting like a crazy old fool. A person should have some shame, right? What, is what we do merely a vicious purge, and your killings are the actions of a dark hero? Why don't you get yourself a bat mask then? Even a hero wearing a bat mask doesn't kill people. The amount of pent-up feelings the black dragon witch held against the sword saint was palpable. To anyone else, such a storm of criticism would be overwhelming, but the sword saint didn't even blink. He listened quietly, then casually said, "The black dragon witch is a human person." Anastasia paused. What? Most residents living in the tower know the black dragon witch as a ruthless ruler. A woman who secretly poisons her enemies. A tyrant who spreads spies all over, keeping an ear on everything that happens in the tower. A sovereign who coldly cuts down anyone standing in her way, no matter who it is. The black dragon witch clenched her fist. Her lips trembled, not knowing whether the old man was mocking her or if there was another sinister plan, making her unable to respond. But look at the woman here. The sword saint let go of his sword hilt and pointed to the black dragon witch with his bare hand. She is just infinitely human. She rejoices in reducing meaningless sacrifices. She cries over unavoidable sacrifices. She gets angry at corruption and incompetence, praises effort and struggle, and respects heroes who achieve results. Until now, the sword saint had laughed heartily. But in this moment, his eyes were not smiling. His moon-like eyes glanced at the black dragon witch and me. Even though she is a ruler who has assassinated and purged many people. Young man. The black dragon witch is a human person. That's why I had no choice but to worry about you. The old man's tone softened as he spoke to me. But the tone of his words was firm, and his white eyebrows were resolutely set. Normally, it is said that when you peel off a layer, everyone becomes human. But this old man thinks the opposite. When anyone puts on a mask, even for a moment, they only appear human. I silently contemplated. From the other side of the wide rock where we stood, the sound of the festival still reached us. Thud, 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 thud. Thud. The goblins, having prepared drums from who knows where, were passionately beating them. The fairies provided free liquor, and all the races were intoxicated. You're right. The black dragon witch, the heretic questioner, the count, the venomous snake. All of them must have blood on their hands. Even the old man before me, before he changed after meeting me. And Raviel. If I were to face complete death for some reason. If I were to disappear. If it becomes impossible to ever find me again. Just as she completes me, I also complete her. If one of us disappears, what remains is nothing but shattered remnants. A heart completely frozen. A person doesn't need many reasons to break. But it's okay. I look directly into the sword saint's aged eyes. As long as I am alive, it's okay. Anastasia always chooses the easy path, doesn't she? Saying it can't be helped. But if I'm by her side, she'll think twice. If I ask her, she'll think 3 times. And if I say I absolutely disagree, even if she sighs, she'll relent her decision. Choosing the difficult path again. It's the same with the other members. I gazed down at the festival. The tentacles of the snail race created a net to lift the heretic questioner into a swing. Ahaha. This is incredible. What an amazing amusement. The heretic questioner's laughter reached us from there. I could intermittently see the Count having tea with the fairy race, and the Crusader swimming with the ocean race. The heretic questioner would say things like, let's kill them to prevent future troubles, because he only knows the easiest, simplest, and most certain method. But if I ask him to think again, he will. That child. You said, Elder, that anyone can appear human by wearing a layer of a mask. If so, I am willing to be that mask for our members. Thud. I walked right up to the sword saint. Close enough that if someone drew their sword, one of us would surely lose a life. There, I looked straight up at the sword saint. You're not an exception either, Elder. After meeting me, you stopped relying on skills to kill murderers. You said you would trust your own eyes. It's not masks, pretenses, or arrogance that make people human. Elder. What keeps a person human is always the presence of others by their side. I raised my hand to grasp something in my pocket. The lily-scented handkerchief Raviel had given me. Unseen by anyone, I held the white handkerchief tightly. I am that person for Anastasia, and she is that person for me. And I hope to be such an existence for you too. Silence followed. The distant cheers and laughter echoed faintly in our ears. Especially the heretic questioner's high-pitched laughter. Ahaha, ahaha. Ahaha. Besides that, everything was quiet. No sound came from the forest surrounding us. Indeed. The old man spoke. You have already become one of those people for me. Yes. My heart was filled with joy. I smiled gently. I am glad to hear that. You taught me, painfully, that I could be wrong. Now, you have shown me that even a person like the Black Dragon Witch can change. Each time I meet you, I change once. You're not just a good friend, but also a good teacher. No. That's a bit of an exaggeration. After all, this old man always does everything excessively. Threats, warnings, emotions, compliments, everything is overdone. Wearing a suit, he may look neat, but he's actually quite emotional. But, young man, there's a fatal flaw in your words. A flaw? I tilted my head in confusion. A flaw, or weakness, call it what you will. The sword saint nodded. It's that if you die, everyone around you will revert to being even more monstrous beasts than before, or as they were in the past. It was a similar statement to what the lady had once told me. The Black Dragon Witch who shares your friendship, the heretic questioner, and these hundreds of warriors holding their swords, ready to pounce at any moment, all of them, though perhaps not as much as your spouse, will go mad. They will become beasts that tear the world apart. So. Thud. The sword saint lightly tapped my chest. Right where the heart is located. If we wish to remain human, young man, above all, you must value your own life the most. No matter what happens, whatever sacrifices must be made, you must protect your own life. That is the duty of one who has resolved to lead the heretic questioner down the path of humanity, who has brought the Black Dragon Witch into friendship, and who has prevented me from slaughtering even a single person over these past months. Yes. I slowly nodded. It was a fact I was already aware of, but it needed reaffirmation. I will never leave. Never? I will do my utmost. Yes. That's the most honest promise you can make. The sword saint then smiled playfully. I'm sorry, but I trust people less than the Black Dragon Witch. From a young age, I've found humans unreliable and sometimes contemptible, and I often heard McAllister asking me why I had such a lack of faith in humanity. Young man, the promise you've just made, it seems unlikely to be kept. No. Rather, I have a premonition that it will definitely be broken. I don't like to brag, but predicting such ominous premonitions is my specialty. Huh? Death King. Yes? Rustle. The sound of grass being softly crushed was heard. The sword saint knelt on one knee in front of me. I wish to become your bodyguard. What? To be your bodyguard, to protect your life, and to forever preserve the humanity of those around you. The elderly gentleman winked with his left eye. Despite his advanced age, it was a remarkably fitting gesture. He must have been quite the heartbreaker in his youth. I may have well surpassed the average retirement age for a bodyguard. But would you employ this pitiable old man? No, elder. You're a former corporate chairman and the current top-ranked swordsman. Why would someone like you want to be my bodyguard? Chapter 273, Hidden Message, 3. Me, you're going to protect me, the elder? Sword Saint nodded vigorously. Don't think for a moment that my age makes me unfit to guard someone. No, it's not about age. That's absurd. Considering his robust physique barely concealed by his shirt, one could hardly argue that physical age was a limiting factor for him. Don't be alarmed. Didn't you say it yourself? As long as your life is spared, the Black Dragon Witch and others won't regress to their former chaotic state. Chaotic state? Who are you calling chaotic? Perhaps you mean that old man who goes around slicing up murderers every 10 days with his blade, pretending to be some righteous avenger? Kim Gongja. As the leader of the Black Dragons, gathering information on people is my specialty. Oh my. Interestingly, the list of people this old man has killed and the circumstances of their incidents are stored in my secret vault, which only I can access. Want to have a look together later? Lucky my list isn't long enough to fill a vault. Black Dragon Witch. Your list is so long, you might need to rent an entire building for it. It's all recorded on USB drives. Who do you think is old-fashioned now? You guys really have a bad relationship. Oh. Perhaps the arguing voices of the two reached far. The heretic questioner, who appeared behind me at some point, was continuously exclaiming in admiration. Well, he probably teleported here using sacred technique, transmission. Immutable number 1, Sword Saint, and the unstoppable number 2, Death King. It seems like they maintain a peaceful relationship, but the residents of the tower are interested in how this will end. A bodyguard. This is newsworthy. The heretic questioner smiled brightly, nodding his head again and again. As usual, he bore an angelic face, but just moments ago, he was being swung around by the snail race children. Swung in a tentacle swing. Following the laws of physics, the snail's sticky secretions transferred onto the heretic questioner, now dripped with slime every time he nodded his head. Drip, drip. Bambolina, I'm sorry, but could you move a little bit away? Ahaha. If Sword Saint becomes Death King's bodyguard, everyone will know. It will reveal who has gained the upper hand between the two. Thud. The heretic questioner spread his arms wide and laughed heartily. The snail's bodily fluids, or rather the snail race's aloe-like slime, he had been holding, was suddenly shot out like bullets. Naturally, I was the one who got hit. Feels like an attack that could improve my skin. The time is ripe for Death King's forces to make a full appearance. Let's use number 1 becoming a bodyguard as a symbolic event and reveal it. What? What are you going to reveal? I slowly evaporated the slime covering my body with aura and asked. Of course, the fact that Death King has unprecedented power in this tower. After all, you are already a hero of the tower, but your image is more of a warrior, largely thanks to Black Dragon Witch's image making. But now, it's time to adopt the image of a monarch or leader. Perhaps, the king of the tower. No, I don't see why I need to. Because it's the truth. My master. The heretic questioner beamed at me. I glanced around, feeling a strange sensation. Without realizing it, both the Black Dragon Witch and the Sword Saint had stopped arguing and were now silently observing us. Quietly. Once again, when I turned my gaze, not only Estelle and the other guardians of our family but also the Count, who was drinking tea with the fairies far away, and the Crusader, who was swimming with the mermaids, caught my eye. What's with this atmosphere? Kim Gongja. This shameless old man mentioned something to you earlier. Amidst the unfamiliar silence around me, Anastasia spoke up. He said he was testing you. You might feel slighted to hear this, but it wasn't just the old man testing you. Me. And all of us. We've been observing you all along. I remember hearing something similar before. They were observing whether I was worthy of being their comrade. But I thought I had already passed that test. Why? To see if you truly have what it takes to be our leader. You bring joy as a friend. It's a fortune to have you as a comrade. But we cannot merely accept misfortune as mere accidents or fortune as mere happiness. We are leading people, after all. Splat. The sound of wet footsteps echoed. Black Dragon. 10,000 Temple. Sanglian. Chen Mumun. Civil Militia. It was the Crusader. She stood atop the broad rock, completely drenched from swimming with the mermaids. The Crusader squeezed the water from her hair, sending droplets falling onto the rock where we gathered. Under their command, including alchemist guilds, there are 13 mid-level guilds. Officially unannounced, but in fact, there are 4 guilds that are practically direct subordinates. Hundreds of guilds work for us as subcontractors, and if you trace the subcontracting chain, it can easily cover the entire city of Babylon. Becoming our business partner is easy. Becoming our comrade, harder. And becoming our friend, even more so. You've managed something difficult. So. The Black Dragon Witch picked up the conversation. As she spoke, my gaze naturally shifted to her. Maybe it's possible to achieve something even harder. I hoped so. The Crusader took over the conversation again. The reason we maintained the structure of the 5 major guilds after the massive purge wasn't for nothing. It's for mutual checks and balances. Almost everyone living in the tower belongs to some guild, that is, members. 5 major guilds, each with comparable power and expertise, should cooperate and compete at the same time. Furthermore, we should protect the personal safety and property rights of those belonging to the guilds. Whether to join a guild, to leave, or to rejoin, it all depends on the residents' freedom. Guilds that fail to make money will naturally decline, and those that don't share their wealth will naturally disappear. We created the tower's system with such thoughts in mind. In other words, we were not confident alone. The Crusader spoke softly. Confident that we wouldn't become corrupt. If the Black Dragon had been the only, sole guild instead of one of the 5, I wonder if I really wouldn't have executed it. No matter how much one thinks of themselves as a person of strong self-control, that restraint comes from the existence of others. Meow. A cat's cry echoed from behind. With the body and eyes of a cat but not the gaze of a beast, a tricolor cat spoke. As you know, we never trusted each other much. Yet, the reason we didn't descend into a total mess and internal war is probably because we didn't trust ourselves much either. That's true. Sword Saint said. In the end, we all wear a mask to appear human. Death King. I was testing to see what kind of person you are. A test. What test are they talking about? Since when? While you were away, we gathered together quite often to talk about you. When exactly? After clearing the library of all things and before entering the 30th floor. We even conducted a thorough background check on you, including your spending habits, people you meet, your behavior when encountering strangers. Almost everything was investigated and shared. Gathering information is my specialty. So said the Black Dragon Witch calmly. Isn't that an invasion of privacy? Yes. Sorry. I truly apologize for that. Digging into a comrade's past really makes me the worst, doesn't it? Deputy Commander of the Civil Militia, would you arrest me for the crime of investigating a person's background? I declare you not guilty. Look at that, Kim Gongja. I'm not guilty. Let's just say I'm sorry and move on. Whoa. Indeed, my comrades and friends are guild masters wielding unparalleled power in the tower. Don't worry. We just reconfirmed that your private life is disgustingly clean. That sentence just felt like a contradiction. We also confirmed that you write a diary every night to show to the Duke of Ivantia. Be thankful that I didn't get my hands on its contents. I really debated whether to order my subordinates to find out what's written in it. Hello? Anastasia? Are you crazy? Have you lost your mind? Oh, but the first sentence is always the same, so I got to know it. My beloved. Let's end our friendship. Bring back the friendship contract. Right now. Anyway, the conclusion is that you are a person of integrity. The Crusader smirked. But having integrity alone isn't enough. If we were to choose you as our leader, there are qualities needed in a leader. Convincing us to remain human is only a secondary issue. It's not about political power either. The calico cat, familiarly, clung to the Crusader's calf. Then the Crusader picked up the cat in her arms, and from within her embrace, the Count Cat spoke. After all, politics should be left to experts. Public safety to the Crusader, internal affairs to the Black Dragon Witch, economy to myself, and if you occasionally need a shoulder to lean on, rely on Venomous Snake. For diplomacy with the outside world, bringing in Sword Saint to handle it is enough. He may be a stubborn old man, but he would listen if it's a request from you, Death King, right? Therefore, the last thing we need to test is just one thing. The cat narrowed her eyes. It was the Count smiling with her eyes. To see how you would govern people if you were in a position of leadership, that was the real test. An example. Initially, when I received the quest from the lady who walks the mirage, I thought, aha. From the 31st floor to about the 40th. This could be useful. Stages where one becomes a god to guide an entire race. It wasn't that I immediately set up the test. Right, 10,000 Temple Master. It was entirely his own choice to rampage around for over 200 years. Aha.
Ha!
The heretic questioner laughed brightly. That's right. This is the first time I'm hearing this story. Well, not just you, the Chen Mumun Master also didn't join in my story. The Count said. But as a result, the impulsive actions of the 10,000 Temple Master gave me a lot of inspiration. In a time of absolute crisis where every race was enslaved, I was able to watch up close as you rallied us all together to start a rebellion. The cat gently stroked the Crusader's cheek with its paw. In short, you have the qualities of a revolutionary. A revolutionary. Not bad at all. I don't dislike it. But the leader we need is not a revolutionary, but a ruler of the tower. Countless refugees who fled from numerous countries. Someone who could soothingly govern the tower's residents who are busy hating, despising, mocking, and ridiculing each other. I needed a little more information. For instance, the Count spoke up. How would you handle different races under your rule? Different races, you mean? I briefly thought of the Dakibi race, but changed my mind after seeing the Count's smiling eyes. Don't tell me, the fairy race. Correct? Death King. It's good that you catch on quickly. My eyes widened. The Count looked at me and let out a cat's purr. The heretic questioner was the first to be eliminated, followed by me. I remember your baffled face when the lady who walks the mirage announced my elimination. Back then. Wait a minute. That makes no sense. Why am I being eliminated? The fairy race has given up their hegemony. Certainly. The content whispered by the fairy race elders in the video shown by the lady was, let's surrender. We can't win this fight, and there's nothing to gain from winning. There's nothing to gain by investing money, and nothing good comes out of it. Whatever we do, it's a losing deal. We'll surrender our country to the Dakibi race and become a vassal state. In exchange, we'll ask for protection. Yes. Let's surrender. It's just becoming a vassal state, no big deal. Thank you. Great cat. That's how it was. I thought it was just a farce that the Count laughingly created. I opened my mouth. Did you deliberately get yourself eliminated? It's more accurate to say I induced my own elimination. The fairy race children surrendered to the Dakibi race on their own, but who raised and nurtured those children? Who were they revering as a god? With just a little prophecy, a little hint, and a little instruction in their dreams, the children would easily follow. Death King. The way you conquered the stage wasn't much different. Thinking back, the fairy race was behind the funding of the multiracial alliance. Before I met Aberka, I had discussed it with the Count, who advised me to negotiate in a direction beneficial to all races, and following her suggestion, I entered Aberka's dream. From the beginning to the end? If the Count big picture was to have the fairy race surrender bloodlessly to the Dakibi race without any battle or war, why would you do such a thing? Didn't I say it? To test you. The Count said. Ruling is easy when you can persecute someone simply for being from another country. Let alone when a different race comes under your command. They look different, have different habits, and even worship different gods. Wouldn't the Dakibi race discriminate against the fairy race? I was curious. How you would lead the Dakibi race is your own matter. But besides that, whether you could also effectively govern other races like ours, who had left their homelands, is a quality necessary for our leader. I fell silent. I slightly raised my eyes to look at the Crusader's face. The Crusader, holding the calico cat, had a calm expression. Patricia. The next person to be eliminated after the Countess. A comrade who voluntarily abstained from the stage. If the fairy race held the capital, the ocean race held logistics, and along with the Count race, her own race was naturally integrated under the Dakibi race. The Crusader nodded. Yes. Kim Gongja. I abstained on purpose. To understand who you are as a person. I realized why the goblins were able to conquer the continent with so little bloodshed.